Hello and welcome. You are gaming with me, Brothgar, and today I'm going to be taking a look at grenades. We're actually going to be comparing the equipment of different grenades here based on Loadout 5.0, which is about the same as what you have on the PS4. Even though I don't have the PS4 version, I do have the PC version. So what you'll notice here is that there are some assumptions you might be making of the grenades. Standard might be more powerful than Tesla because Tesla rounds are weaker than standard slug rounds, so maybe you might be thinking along those terms. And then Pyro is probably going to be the most powerful. But what kind of blast radiuses do they have? Well, let's take a look here. What you'll notice in the equipment store here is if you were to buy a rare one of these weapons, you'll notice that the standard rounds are less expensive than the Pyro, and Pyro is far less expensive than the Tesla. Now, why in the world is that? Is Tesla just super superior to everything? Well, let's take a look here. I've actually managed to get all the grenades of the same level with no damage boosts on them at all. So everything's level 10 here, 465 damage on the standard grenade. And again, you see there's no damage buff, just reload and reload rate. And then you have the Tesla grenade, which has the exact same amount of damage. So what you notice there is you get an upgrade of basically the Tesla characteristics, so you're going to be doing a lot more damage to shields, personal shields, and deployable turrets, as well as those little heal bots that like to fly around in the PvE. So that's going to be an upgrade to the standard round itself as far as damage output. Now, the fire grenade here has a very superior amount of damage with 605. However, let's head on over here into the test range and show you how I'm just going about testing these rounds. Alright, so the first and foremost I have on my character right here is the Tesla grenades. These are the Mac Daddy. They're supposed to be the best because they're most expensive, right? Well, let's take a look here. As the Loadout likes to change things and likes to rebalance weapons, you might have to redo this test depending on what kind of gear you have and the fact that you're not going to be getting stuff at the same level. Basically, as you throw them at the feet there, that wasn't a real good test, but what I was able to do is over 460 damage to each character right there. That is a huge amount of damage. However, if you are used to Loadout 4.0 on the PC, which is the current official released version, that would do 100 damage, instantly killing the player, which everything on that Loadout scenario is actually 100 based, whereas this is not. My player is also level 10, so I don't know if the numbers are going to be different because the Loadout's kind of a lot different than it used to be. However, as people are kind of teabagging each other here and taunting, you got 406 to 412 damage. That's a huge amount of damage, just about instantly killing the players right there. And then that was able to bleed over. If you threw it a little bit farther away, you're going to be getting 306 damage. So, as you know right there, Tesla is definitely powerful. Alright, so the second test you're going to want to do is actually throw it back here in the corner. This is going to give you kind of more of a realistic damage being off-center, and depending on where people are, it's going to show a little bit different. Alright, so you have 148 to about 60 damage there. I think it was like 58. I didn't catch the number quite fast enough. 125 to 250. Sometimes you'll see when you throw it back in here that 2 grenades will actually kill this player, but not do a lot of damage to this player, usually over 50% health. But in this characteristic right there, in this scenario, both players survived. Alright, so let's test the range real quick here. To do that, what you're going to want to do is throw the grenade in this kind of area. There is the grate, or the edge of the grate is kind of one benchmark. This line is going to become another benchmark, and then this line is going to become basically the limit of grenades. Now they are going to be different, some of them are going to act differently. So the Tesla here, real quick, if we kind of throw it on the edge of that grate, still over 200 damage right there on the edge of the grate. If you throw it on the line, things drop down to 100 damage. So you're doing about half as much as you were right there. So you see a quick drop off between this distance and that distance right there. Now if we throw it real far back here, what you're going to see here is probably about the furthest most limit of grenades. Only 28 damage is making it back to the players. So not a lot of damage right there. If you throw it at the front of the grate though, what you're probably going to get is just about maximum damage to the closest character. This one was a little bit farther away, so maybe right around here, and it was still over 300 damage. So maximum, half, quarter, nothing at all. Just to kind of give you guys an idea of the actual range there of Tesla rounds. Alright, so we're running the same test now, but now we have standard grenades. 465 and a huge amount of damage to the other player right there. Pretty similar to what we saw with the Tesla. If you land it at their feet, it's pretty much game over for those players, as long as you can just do a little bit of damage. Alright, so now we're going to be throwing the corner test out there. Only 50 damage made it back here, not as much as we saw with the Tesla. And neither player died. This one is actually a little bit more healthy. than it was before, but I've seen these tests actually vary almost randomly to a point. Alright, so let's do a range test real quick here. What we're going to be doing is the edge of the grate here first. 460, and that was a bad bounce. You saw 300 damage, at least you know what it is, right? And about 200 damage, so a little bit less than 50% right here at the grate. So if we bring it back to the line here, let's just see how much damage we can do from here. Yeah, about 100 to 150. Pretty similar to what we saw with Tesla. And if we land it right on the line, again, 23 damage. So pretty much about the same range as what you're going to have with the Tesla grenade. The real bonus there is the Tesla damage, which realistically, since they do the same amount of damage, the Tesla's better. Alright, so here we are with the pyro grenades. We're going to be throwing this out again. This does over 600 damage to a single target. So what we should see is that this player that takes all the damage is going to go down. Does 150 right off the bat to 125, just about 124, I think. So that's pretty similar to the damage you would get right out here, right off the bat. Now, of course, you can actually roll out of this, but what we saw there is the pyro grenade was able to drop both targets. Now, if we were to actually throw it a little bit farther away, let's say the edge of the grate here, as long as it bounces correctly, you're still seeing a pretty similar amount of damage. 145 damage should actually take this target down, maybe. Oh, just enough, yes. Almost dropping both characters, even with that far. So you see your sphere of influence there for one hit kill is right around here, so that's a pretty decent amount of distance, but again, it still takes a lot of time for that damage to apply. And they can roll, and they can also get healed, and they're still capturing the flag. Let's throw it back in the far corner here and see how this fares out. 60 wind damage to 34 right off the bat, and these are both going to cook down. So about 50% damage, and a little bit more than maybe what we've seen. I don't know, not too far off on the other player. What you're seeing though is that Pyro's damage actually has a much faster drop-off rate than you have with the standard grenades. So realistically, you're getting about full damage on all grenades about this far away, and then they're going to quickly drop off to the effective range right around here, and then it's just a little bit of splash damage, no damage at all. However, Pyro is actually going to be a little bit less. Let's show you just how much. So if we drop the Pyro grenade right here on the edge of the grate, you're seeing 79 damage, 59 damage. It did bounce a little bit left of the very edge there. It's kind of a hard one to line up. Over 50% damage to that character right there. A huge amount of damage, but again, it did jump left. It did jump left, and I'm going to have to zero these characters out before I do it again. Alright, so let's try this one again. We're going to try to land it right on that edge. It bounces a little bit left. 78 damage is going to do a huge amount of damage. And since double that amount was a one-hit kill, you're actually still doing over 50%. So there you have it. That is actually a pretty significant result. But let's go ahead and drop this a little bit farther away on that line just to see how quickly it drops off. Alright, so here we are. The player's a little bit farther here. I'm going to be dropping it on the line. 46 to 36 damage right there. So they're going to cook down a little bit less than 50%. So the difference between here, and that was huge. And then the difference between there and that was, again, pretty much one hit kill for a little bit over 50%. So you can see that the Pyro drops off pretty quick, but the reality is it's definitely a very powerful grenade. So when do you actually use a Pyro grenade over a Tesla grenade? Because that's realistically the two grenades you're going to be looking at. Well, on things like Blitz, you're probably going to want to run the Tesla grenade just because you want to down that enemy that is actually on the flag. You don't want them to sit there and continue capturing that flag, because then you have to contest them continuously. However, on a mode that is going to be more like Death Snatch, or it's going to be more of Jackhammer, the Pyro grenade might be superior to the Tesla just because of its superior amount of damage. And the fact that you can actually throw it if you're trying to reload and then be able to kind of bleed away. It has a different strategic use than you would have of a Tesla grenade. The other mode that you might also want to do is Domination. Again, there you might want to run the Tesla grenade as well. For me, primarily, I like to do the damage right off the bat and then clean up the characters otherwise. Now, if we throw it way out here, does it still do damage? Yeah, again, it still does a little bit of damage, even less than what you saw with the Tesla grenade, but they all seem to have pretty similar ranges. But the reality here is that Pyro You got to run that gamble. Do you want more damage over time, or do you want to do a more superior amount of damage at the beginning? All right, so one last thing to take a look at is that you actually have healing grenades. If you are running 4.0, you actually have the boost grenades as well, but that is not here in the game any longer. So 166. So what is that realistically? Is it 166 per second, 166 total? What does it do? Let's go ahead and apply a lot of damage here. So as you see here, I was doing 113 damage to a player per hit. So right around there, realistically, 160 damage should heal this instantly, and then we'll see what happens. Well, basically, a healing grenade does 160 something, and then it does healing over time, and it really does a pretty good job of building up that health. Now, this is effective when you're on something like Blitz and you just have a team that's working together. You can really max out everybody's health, but you have to choose whether or not you're going to be using a health pack here, which people tend to run to like it's a discounted TV on Black Friday. I mean, they will go after that. However, the splash damage that happens on the ground here, sometimes it's nice and big, sometimes it's not big at all. And the thing is, I haven't seen a lot of people effectively use it in game. It can be useful if people are aware of it, but most of the time people ignore it. And you have to be standing still and on it. So it does that 166 right off the bat, and then it seemed to be about 100 and something per second. It does a lot of damage. I mean, a lot of health per second here. So you can see how it's working right there. 112 is coming back pretty quickly there. Nah, I'm not exactly sure. You could do run the numbers themselves. It's usually less effective than just running health packs, but you know, it's another option for you. So I figured I'd throw it in there and just show you what a level 9 grenade of health does. It's a little bit different than how you use other grenades, but hey, it exists, so I covered it. So there you have it, guys. That is the difference between those 3 grenades right there. It's just basically comes down to the choice of, do you want to do more damage over time, or do you want to do that damage right off the bat? Because realistically, they're functionally about the same. So I hope you found this video informative. If you did, maybe leave a like on the way out. If you haven't subscribed already, maybe you want to hit that subscribe button on your way out as well. Maybe let your friends know what's going on here in the Loadout community. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, stay awesome. Peace. Brothgar